Let's get into the Aston by-election now with my Friday panel. Joining me, Sky News contributor Prue MacSween and Daily Telegraph columnist Vicky Campbell. We'll start, as I said, with Aston, the Tudge resignation yesterday. I don't know, there was a dramatic surprise, but I think the timing caught people off guard. It's got a slim margin. He lost about 7% at the last election, so 2.8%. I know some Liberals would be happy with 3% like that, but it's still going to be hard won. Peter Dutton was out this morning definitely trying to sort of reset expectations. Have a listen.
It is a tough seat for us to hold, there's no question about that, and there are a lot of families there though who are really feeling the pain of their mortgages, which will always be higher under Labor. That's the difficulty, that's the reality of what they're experiencing at the moment. So it'll be a hard-fought contest.
OK, Vicky, you have to go back about 100 years before an opposition-held seat has been lost to the government in a by-election. I said at the top of the show, forget having a woman as your saving grace. How about you just have a good campaign? How about you make it a referendum on cost of living? Do you think that's where they'll go?
I hope so. I think that Aston has, if you go through history, Aston has always been a bit of a litmus test for Australia. You know, it is a mortgage belt. I think the test for the Liberals will be, will they put in a quasi-teal Liberal or will it be a real Liberal? Because you've got to remember, last election, all those really offensive people that everyone hated, they all kept their seats. And all the inoffensive ones, they're all out there looking for new jobs.
What do you think, Prue?
Well, I think that worries me when we hear words that they're looking for a woman. I think we need the best person. I have to say, though, that I've heard Christina Campbell, who's a barrister, very impressive woman who I believe is on Melbourne Council, is a potential contender. And I think a woman may have a lot of empathy for the middle mortgage belt. When you think about why Tudge was so popular, he was highly intelligent and effective, articulate, but he also had empathy. He was approachable. And I think that sometimes women are more that way, not some of the hard-ass teals, I must say, but the ones like Christina Campbell, I think, has a very good chance. And I think that as long as they keep it on the cost of living, because when we think about how much money Chalmers and Albo are going to be spending with their, you know, their aged care, their child care presence, the costs of energy, etc., front and present on the minds of every voter is going to be, how the hell do we pay the mortgage and feed our kids and pay these ridiculous energy bills? So if you can keep it on that radar, then I think you've got a good chance of maybe getting back.
Yeah, look, Christina Campbell is impressive. She went for a run. She tried pre-selection at the adjoining seat of Casey. At the last election, she didn't get it. She lives in the inner city, so a long way away from the mortgage belt. That said, the best chance they have of winning this thing is to allow rank-and-file Liberals out there to choose and stop this imposition of candidates from head office. Prue, I've got to go to this story today about speed cameras in Sydney. You know, we're told they're for safety. No one believes that. They're revenue raisers. That's absolutely true. One camera in a 40k zone, and my home, at the front of my home's just been made a 40k zone, so I'm alive to this issue. 40k zone has raked in $5 million in just 18 months. Where do you stand on this? I mean, this is getting out of control.
Totally out of control. Although one could argue that in Sydney's narrow streets where the parking, it's more like a parking lot, you'd be really delighted if you could get up to 40 k's. But the point is that, you know, between Clover Moore and her bike lanes that have made our streets so congested, you know, it's appalling that we are having the situation where we have a total revenue raised by this government. And, of course, Labor, who's going to need the bucks because God knows where else they're going to get it if they get in at the next election. But this is totally revenue raising, and I just think we're over it. We really are over it. People say don't speed and then you don't have to worry. But for goodness sake, when you're dropping it down to 40 from 60 with very little notice, it's very easy to get done.
And of course, it's really bad when you get out to the bush, Vicky, and I know you spend a lot of time on country roads, but rather than fix the roads, all they do is just drop the speed limit.
Yeah, and honestly, I really think with fines too, you know, it affects the poor people more than it does the rich people. What we have equally is time. So I just think we should get rid of fines really altogether and pin it to training. If you break the law, you have to go to training. That's it. Then we all suffer the same.
What about kids and vaping, Prue? It seems to have gone to sort of stratospheric levels, particularly in Victoria. And a lot of older kids are getting hold of the vapes and giving it to the 7, 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds to basically push around like a pyramid scheme, literally like a drug dealing market in schools.
And they're supposed to be illegal, yet who's policing that? They're laced with nicotine or synthetic nicotine, so we're basically, all the money that's been spent on these anti-smoking campaigns are just irrelevant now, because we're going to breed a nation, a generation of kids who are going to be hooked on nicotine. It's appalling, but, you know, there's no discipline in schools. Who's running the schools? It's the animals are running the zoo. And this is the problem, that no one will say no. And where are the bloody parents, for goodness sake? Why are these kids in a situation where they can spend this money?
But can I also
Vicky,
add to that?
I know we've talked about, please. Yeah, please do.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It's just, you know, Labor reviewed our current laws around vaping over Christmas. They got 30,000 submissions over vapors, and now the suggestion is they're going to make it even harder to get legal vape. So you're going to have to go to a doctor every 4 months to get a script, then you're going to have to go to the chemist and get it in line. You can't import it overseas anymore. This is going to mean we didn't have a black market before we had these rules. This was the TGA that lobbied Greg Hunt to get this in. Honestly, consumer safety is meant to go to the ACCC. That's where this stuff should be. The fact that we've got kids who are accessing these vapes, which are made in China, they're full of additives like coolant. This is a massive issue, and really it shows that the regulations that we have in place do not work.
100%.
Spot on. Vicky Campion, Prue MacSween. Thank you, ladies. Have a good weekend.